Ooh,
All
that's
right. I know. I like how it tells us you are live, so there's no confusion. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to another Thrive O'Clock in the Thrive and EDU community. And for anybody joining in on Twitter or YouTube or LinkedIn, as I freeze, big surprise there. I am joined today again by Bonnie, but first I will tell you, I'll show you on the screen who I am. You probably, if you've been joining in, then you know I'm Rachelle, and every Monday and Friday, most Mondays and Fridays, we have a live show with a guest, have a lot of conversation, good times, good chat, and always a game at the end. So enough about me and on to my co-host today, Bonnie. Oh, I pointed the right way. Bonnie, tell us about yourself.
I am Bonnie Nieves. I'm a high school science teacher and a consultant. I started Educate on Purpose just this year, and the author of Be Awesome on Purpose, which is an EduMatch book that's been out for about a year too.
Wow,
So that's
you're
just me.
busy.
I am busy. Yeah, actually, funny thing. One of my students today said, "Mrs. Nieves, are you famous?"
Oh
Like,
my
I don't
God.
know. Did you hear about me before you came into my classroom? Then I guess I'm not. So there's that.
I know. Yeah, I've gotten the same thing from some of my students as well, and they're like, "You're famous," or "I saw you on Twitter," or some of them were following. I said, "If you're following me on Instagram, you're not going to be seeing a lot of things because I don't use it as much as Twitter." But it's funny what their responses are. But before we bring our guest up, I just want to do a quick shout out and say thank you to Kevin for sending me a copy of his book, 3DU, a guide to 3D printing in every classroom. So there it is. Just got it in the mail today. So I'm looking forward to diving in. So for anybody who is interested in learning more about this book, I will drop a link in the chat for everybody to see. So I want to give that shout out and say thank you so much, Kevin. I can't wait to check it out. But it's time to bring our guest up. So let's bring Dennis on up and give a big welcome to today's guest,
What's
Dennis
up?
Mathew. What
What's up,
is
people?
up? Yeah.
Nothing. Friday. I'm tired. Toast.
I know. Just be glad it's Friday, right? Because sometimes you wake up and you're like, I've woken up and I thought it was Saturday before, and then I realize it's Friday, and I think, oh, well, I have to actually get up and go to work today. So,
Yeah. And when you have a toddler, you get to wake up and go to sleep multiple times before your actual alarm goes off. So that's also a thrill.
yeah, but do you even need an alarm?
I expect her to wake me up at around 3 o'clock, then around 5 o'clock. I know Bonnie's like, huh? Yep.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Well, I've seen your pictures when you post, and she is beautiful and adorable. And I guess if that's who's waking you up, I'm sure that even if you're tired and so forth, as soon as you see that face, there's probably like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, she plants like little gentle kisses on my cheek. Dada, wake up, let's go play. And I'm like, it's 5:36. Go back to sleep.
Oh
Hi,
gosh.
Sarah. I see Sarah saying hi.
Yeah, Dr. Sarah in the house. Amazing. So excited to have her drop in. So, Dennis, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know I have some information about you on the ticker and on the banner, but I would love to hear about how you got to where you are today, what you do, because you do so many things. So, let us know a little bit about you.
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me, you guys. I've been looking forward to this call with you, Rochelle. I knew it would happen at some point, but I know we're all, kind of doing our things with books and speaking engagements and all that good stuff. So I was super excited when you reached out to me. And Bonnie, nice to meet you too. Rochelle, I don't know if you remember, you were one of the first people I connected with back in the day. And when I say back in the day, it's like 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
When Bello first came out. But the last 2.5 years for me feels like I've been doing the author stuff for a decade now. But just to
Yeah.
backtrack a little bit, I'm a speech pathologist. I work in an elementary school, currently in Mustang, Oklahoma. I was born in the UAE, but when people ask me, where are you from? I always say Mustang, Oklahoma is my home because it's the longest I've ever kind of put my roots down in any one spot in the world. I've traveled quite a bit, but Mustang's where I've kind of stayed the longest. So it's kind of a point of pride and honor to be working for Mustang schools here in Oklahoma City in the metro area. 15th year in education. Time flies by. When I always jokingly say, when I started out, I had a head full of hair and no facial hair. And it's just the opposite now. I've lost all my hair up top and I've got a beard as well. So, yeah. And then about 2.5 years ago, I kind of took a risk and decided to, give being a children's author a chance. Did not really expect much of it. It was just a bucket list thing. Like circumstances in life kind of forced me to pursue it. But then it kind of, the door kind of, flung open, and it's kind of evolved into being a second full-time gig now. So by the grace of God, I've got 3 children's books that I've written. They're all over the house, but I've got them all right here. And I want to say, since the very first time we connected, Rachelle, I want to say you and I connected back in 2019 when Bello, my first book, had just come out, and I was just getting on Twitter and wondering who's going to want to buy my books. I'll have to get it in every bookstore out there, blah, blah, blah. But now we're sitting at around, hi, Michael, around 26,000 books distributed to schools all across this country. And I'm in a position now where, I do my day job, which is working at the school 8 to 3 or whatever. And the minute I get off the clock at school, I'm on a video call with the superintendent or a principal or a librarian, or with classrooms or schools doing virtual author visits. I think in the last 2.5 years, I've presented to some 85,000 plus kids, and maybe around 150 schools. It's crazy and nuts. Like when you were talking about, what game should we play at the end, the reason I said, let's not try to go get me to go find something in the room, because if I turn this laptop around, it's literally empty boxes. Because in the last, year or so, all I've been doing is just collecting empty boxes to like pack and ship books. So they're all just books waiting, boxes waiting to be filled with books and shipped out to school. So it's really cool to, realize that something I thought would be just a swing at, an idea that I had, it's kind of evolved into 3 books and coaching authors and lots of other things. So it's really humbling. And I can't believe that I get to talk to educators from all around the country, like you guys, and sometimes even from educators from other parts of the world. It's just mind blowing to me. So, people always ask, hey, what should I do if I want to be an author? And I always say, sit down and start writing now. Don't drag your feet, just write first, and then everything else will kind of fall into place. So that's a little bit about me. Oh, I'm a husband, I'm a father. That's, that comes first. And right. Everything I do is about them. And so, yeah. And we have a little dog as well. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, back to the book, Bello, and I have your book. I'm trying to think, your book, Melody McAllister's book, Jeff Kubiak's book, and Tara Martin's book, Cannonball. Like, I have those 4. I may have one more, but I have those 4 in my classroom. Because with my own books that I've written, like one of my students has been involved in a couple of the covers, and then a few of my other students did some of the graphics and sketch notes and some of the other books. And so I like having them there because it inspires them. I say, you never know, maybe you're going to be an illustrator. I said, authors need people to illustrate their books. Right. I said, look at how beautiful these are. And then I see what my students are drawing. And just with your books too, I mean, they're so eye-catching and visual, and I love the story. And so you had sent me the Bello, and so that one is there. And my students, I teach Spanish, so it's not like they're actually reading the books, but I use them just to show my students and any of the kids that come in, like, you like to draw, like, there's a need for that, to have those skills. Sometimes they apologize to me for doodling, which years ago I did yell at them. I was like, why are you drawing in class? Pay attention, write your verbs. But that's actually how I noticed the student that had drawn the cover to my first book. And it started from there. And I was like, wow. So anyways, that was the first thing that stuck out about you. But I can't believe it's been 2.5 years. But you're right. Like, just time just evaporates, especially with the pandemic. And then you keep super busy. So we are very thankful that you're joining us, especially on a Friday. But I am going to stop talking because I just said a lot there. And I'm going to kick it over to Bonnie to ask you some questions about the writing process, because you brought up a good point. And a lot of people have reached out to me, like, how do I get started? How do I talk to publishers? And you're right, you do just start. But for some people, it's uncomfortable because they think like, I don't know what to write about, but I'm going to leave it to Bonnie to ask you some better questions.
No, your questions were just great. Rachelle, did you say you teach Spanish?
Spanish and a STEAM course and like an emerging technology course. Yeah.
So that's really cool that you said that, because Bello just became a bilingual book too.
Nice.
So the English and Spanish version of Bello the Cello just got published as a result of a partnership. So
fantastic.
Just throw that out there. Yeah, it's really cool. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yeah. So first, why did you write Bello? What was your thinking?
So when I do author visits, kiddos always want to know, what inspires you to write? What inspired you to write Bello? And I don't know if there are authors out there for whom the ideas that they develop, the ideas that they want to write about are separate from their identity and who they are as an individual. Like, I don't know if it's purely cerebral for some authors out there. For me, what I write about, who I write about, the kind of characters I form are very much a part of who I am. So a lot of times the stories that I write about, I tap into who I am, what I've been through, my identity as a person, things I have overcome. That's what so it's a place of emotion, and my evolution as a person, my progress as a person. That's where I go mentally and emotionally, and sometimes even spiritually, to like write what I write about. So, speaking of Bello, right? Bello very much, to me, when I think of Bello, I think of a younger Dennis Mathew. So Bello, Bello was that kid in school that did not fit in, who struggled to find his place, who struggled to find his song. Well, man, anytime I think of Bello the cello, there's an image of me that comes to my mind on my first day of school going to kindergarten. And I remember to this day how traumatic that was. I remember my dad took a picture as I was ready to go to school. I remember where I stood, what I was wearing, what I was holding. And I also remember how traumatic that first day was, because there was immense separation anxiety between, like, I had never left the home space, and now I was going to be dropped off at school. And I wondered if my dad or my mom would come back ever. So there were those real emotions that I was dealing with as a 6-year-old. And to this day, as an almost 40-year-old man, those emotions are real for me. And so when I wrote Bello, I very much tapped into that to write Bello and his, write about Bello and kind of craft his character, to kind of talk about his struggle to find his place in the world. Why do I do that? Because I have the privilege of walking school hallways, right? 15 years in a row, I get to do it. I get to hang out with our little ones, helping them find their voice, so to speak, helping them with their articulation, their language delays. And so to me, like, young Dennis is still alive for me in the children that I see every day in the schools that I work. And so I just knew that story of Bello finding his song would really resonate, especially with some of the kiddos that I see as a speech therapist, who, a lot of times would just define themselves by their articulation profile or their language delays, etc. So trying to teach kiddos that you are not defined by the things that you are not able to do very well, that you have things that you really shine at, right? And that's Bello's story, because the hallmark quote that people always bring up from Bello the cello is the moon telling Bello it's not about what you can't do, but about what you can do, right? So, like, choosing to focus on what's working, choosing to focus on what's positive, right? So that's my childhood story that I channeled into the story of Bello the cello. And so that's where I find my inspiration a lot of times for my own stories, my own experiences and memories as an individual growing up. Now, why the cello? Because the cello is my favorite instrument. I've always felt very moved, every time I heard a cello play, and I kind of drew parallels between a cello and Dennis Mathew. I was just like, the cello is not the most famous, most sought after, most cool instrument on the market, right? People are always drawn to the drums or the electric guitar or the piano or whatever. So I connected with that. I was just like, man, like, that very much reminds me of who I was when I was young. I, was a misfit, was not popular, but just like Bello, eventually I was able to find not just one thing, but many things I was, pretty good at. So clearly being an author is, something that I'm gifted at, I think. So that's where I go, Bonnie. I go to my own personal experiences to, be inspired for stories.
Yeah, that it's important to have that meaning in the stories that you write, right? And it comes across in the words that you say. People can definitely pick up on that for sure.
Yeah, and the takeaway for our little ones especially is telling our boys and girls, hey guys, listen, there are amazing stories living within you. You don't have to look outside of yourself to go write a story. Even our children who are going through bad experiences in life, use those experiences, guys. Turn that for good, right? Put purpose to whatever pain points you have in life. Isn't that true for even grown-ups? Isn't that what we're all supposed to be doing, right? When life hands you lemons, right? We turn it into lemonade. And so you redeem those things that at one point gave you pain or pressure or put you in a difficult spot or whatever. So that pretty much, sums up my writing process. And people ask me, students will ask me, what's your mission as an author? Who are you writing to? Who's your audience? And I always say, I write to the underdog in the classroom, that kid who feels like the odds are stacked up against them, whatever those odds may be, right? And the big mantra of my book says, listen, you will overcome if you don't give up, but also be sure that you don't try to overcome on your own. Lock arms with some people that will take you in the right direction. So community and camaraderie is a big, element of my stories.
Yeah, Bonnie, that was a fantastic question that you asked. I knew you would have a great question to ask for sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
I feel it's also important to make sure kids know to connect with people. And because a lot of times they try to do things on their own, or they feel as though it's a weakness, and even adults too feel as though it's a weakness to seek help or find the group of people who are most supportive to you. But then when you do find it, you feel pretty unstoppable. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm gonna shift gears on you only because you brought up something. As I was listening to you, like for me, for years, I would never tell my story. I kept everything to myself. I was afraid to let people know that, I was struggling with classroom management or behaviors or whatever, or that I wasn't connecting with students. And that was a really, really long time into my career. But then I had a group of students and they just made it difficult to not get to know them, because they were like, we want to know who you are. We want to connect with you. And so I learned a lot from them about the importance of sharing my story, because what I noticed was they were struggling in class, or they were afraid to be wrong, or there were all of these different things. And I could relate to that as my own experience as a student when I was a kid, which was a while ago, but more recent, well, not really that recently, but in law school, when I went back, and, I was teaching full time, but I was going to law school full time at night. And I got to experience both sides of that. Now I'm uncomfortable. I don't know the answer. And nobody's here to help me, and all of these things. So I look at my teaching career as when I really started officially. And then after graduating law school, I feel like that was my new beginning of teaching, which is when I started to share more, and that importance of relationships. And something that you brought up is, that without necessarily saying it, was the vulnerability, because you are making yourself vulnerable, but you have to share those stories for so many reasons. Because one, and I put social emotional learning on there, because a lot of the things that you're talking about, both you and Bonnie, tie into that, because we're aware of where we need to grow, and then building relationships and our understanding of other people and differences, and getting along, and that social awareness. So I wondered if you could speak to that, what has the impact been, or what have you seen, or what do you hear educators talking about, or anything that you can share with anybody who maybe is thinking about, social emotional learning, which again was something I didn't necessarily know a lot about, but I've been talking a lot about last year and a half. But it doesn't have to be this other extra thing on top of it. There's little things that we can do, but it's so important. So I wondered if there was something, some ideas that you could share with everybody who's watching now or later.
Yeah. So the other big reason why I write the books that I write, as an author, but also an educator who occupies, the education space, is I want my books to be a wellspring of resources for classroom teachers. So on one hand, while I write to the underdog in the classroom, making sure that children see themselves in my stories, I also want a teacher to be able to open up any of my books and be able to tackle issues that are tied to being connected, diversity, vulnerability, social emotional learning. So a lot of teachers will come back and say, oh my gosh, it was so easy with your books, for my children to identify with their own emotions and with the emotions of individuals in the classroom. So yeah, I don't shy away at all, especially when I have these author talks with schools. Students will go there, if they sense that you are willing to go there. I mean, a lot of times, it's really interesting. A lot of times we put it on our students, saying they're not willing to open up, or they're not willing to talk, or they're not willing to be vulnerable. But a lot of times, what our kids do for us in our presence is a mirror effect of what we are presenting. So a lot of times, for the educator that is not willing to be open or vulnerable, or show themselves, who they are truly, those are the educators that then get students who are jaded, closed off. They're just bottoms in seats, right? But with my kiddos, one thing I often practice is that vulnerability. And so, when I work with children, I always, put emphasis on the fact that, hey, listen, Mr. Mathew is not perfect. Mr. Mathew has a lot of, things that he's working on in his own life. Can you believe that Mr. Mathew was late to a meeting yesterday, and I wanted to be on time, but I couldn't make it? That's modeling vulnerability, right? And when children see that vulnerability, a desire for connection being modeled by the educator, kids open up. And it's almost like we've been waiting to open up, but we didn't know if we had the permission to or not, right? And I so related to Rachelle, you saying, in the beginning of your career, the first half, if you will, you thought you were an educator, but now there's a new beginning happening. And I completely relate to that, because in the beginning, first decade or so, I was so much a content before connection kind of guy. Like, I was always about, child X is in front of me. He's got this goals to address. Where the minute we sit on our seats, we're getting to work, right? And kids will be there, they'll do the work, and 30 minutes later, they walk out of your room and they're on to the next thing. And you feel like you haven't gotten to know your kids. Your kids feel like they haven't gotten to know you. The shift for me now is, a phrase that I heard someone say a while back was slow down to speed up, right? So now I spend so much time in getting to know my children, and getting to know your kids is much bigger than what happens inside your room. It is those drop-ins, those check-ins into those classrooms, just to pop your head in and say, hey, Johnny, how you doing? Are you having a good day? Or Miss Susan, how's Johnny doing? Is he doing all right? Did he have a good morning, right? Seeing your kids in the hallway and making sure to wave, and like checking in. You doing good? Hey, what happened? I don't see your normal smile. You always smile, or I don't see a smile on your face. Are you okay? Those efforts, those initiatives, right? The initiation, those little things that we do as educators in between our education spaces, right? That's what tells our kids, okay, this guy or this woman is much more than just trying to like shove information down my throat. This teacher really wants to get to know me as a human being. And beyond that, I'm really big on getting to know kiddos' families. And so that, Johnny's dad and mom knows, oh, Mr. Mathew is an extension of our family. He's in our corner. We all collectively together have Johnny's best interests in mind. So from day one, I try to get to know my children. I get to know, okay, hey, what does dad do for a living? What does mom do for a living? Do you have any brothers or sisters? Just getting to know them, right? One of my pet peeves is when an educator says, it's like the third semester of the school year, and the educator says, "Oh, I didn't know Johnny had a brother," or, "Oh, is that what Johnny's mom does for work?" I mean, maybe that's normal for that educator, but for me, it brushes me in a weird way because I yearn for connection. In my mind, like I have this like bulb go off, wondering to myself, we've been in school for 8 months. You don't know if the child had a sibling, right? And I always try to instill that curiosity in my kids. Long to know the friends around you. Be curious about the lives of the people that you do life with. Ask your teacher if she has kids. Ask your teacher how long she's been a teacher. Ask your teacher if he has a dog or a cat at home. Get to know each other, right? And here recently, I was doing a presentation where I was like, the strength of a community is always dependent on how well our stories are meshed together, how well our stories have had a chance to intersect and cross paths. When trauma hits a community, a community that has had the opportunity or taken the time to intersect their stories, exchange stories, those communities stay together longer, right? And the communities who have just been like walking past each other like ships in the night, if you will, doing the thing but not really connecting, man, when trauma hits a community like that, you see people just walk away from each other, right? And we want to be people that get to know each other, get to know our students. We want to be teachers that will open up our stories to our kiddos. That's what, at the end of the day, strengthens the culture of a building, I think. So I said a lot there, but I just wanted to share.
No, what you said was great, and great reminders. And ironically, things I wish I knew years ago, which that's the title of my book that'll be out in a month. Things I wish. It's full of all those things I wish I knew. And one of them was about how much time, like I was that teacher that was starting on day one with the content, and late in the year, like I didn't know those things, but now, I know better. So I do better. And I really try to get to know them and let them get to know me. But Bonnie, I didn't know if there was anything that you had to say, because I don't want to talk for a long period of time, because you won't get me to stop.
No, when Dennis was talking though, before he said the word intersect, that's what I was thinking. Like the more you know about people, the more you know where your intersections are. And that is what you lean on when times get tough, or when you need someone to talk to. You're always thinking about, who is the other person that had that experience that I have, right? And because you don't want to go off on your own. You don't want to be off, individually and weak on your own. We need
Yes.
intersection.
I mean, I might make us go over time here, but I do want to touch on something that. See, I'm so glad, Bonnie, that you said that. I am not a fan of I am enough on my own. There is an idea out there that says I'm good, I can do it all on my own. While you might project that out to the world, and while you might be able to white knuckle that that sentiment for a few months, if you are human, and like all human beings have weak points and vulnerabilities, right? You then eventually find yourself in a room by yourself, in your home or whatever, just crying, wishing you had connections. And I know I'm speaking to educators out there when I say that. So I am not a fan of do it all on your own, because that might work for a small amount of time, and then you quickly realize that as human beings, we are wired to be connected, right? I have a memory that's coming to my mind. I was in my office just typing away, doing paperwork. My door was open, and then paying attention to cues is so important. Like I was just walking, a teacher was just walking by, and I always pay attention to faces. I just like doing my kids, just making eye contact, saying hi. A teacher walked past me, and she usually is the smiling, radiant type. She walked past me, and her eyes were red. We made eye contact for a second, and she immediately looked down on the floor and just kept walking past. And I immediately called out her last name. I was like, Miss Jones, and she said yes, because she knew I was gonna like touch on it. So she came to my room, and I was like, what's going on? And she was like, it's just been a rough morning. And immediately said, listen, I've got some time today. Go take an extra, longer lunch break, if you will. I got your kid. So I just grabbed my laptop, paperwork, whatever. thankfully it was a day where I could be a little flexible with my schedule. Immediately, and I'm not saying that to like make myself look good. I find joy in that. We're supposed to live like that, right? I immediately grabbed my stuff. I grabbed my stuff and I said, okay, you got to take an extra 30 minutes or whatever you need. Don't be in your room right now. You're out, right? And she was like, okay. So we went to her room. I took over and covered her class for her, just to give her a little breathing space, right? And that's how we're supposed to do life, being vulnerable, giving people the permission to like step in and help us when we need it, right? That example just came to my mind, so I just had to share. Go ahead.
Yeah. That reminds me of a thing that I heard earlier this week, actually in a get together I was at, where someone said, "You can't compete with me because I want you to win too." Right? We're not against each other. We're moving together through this, and we'll get there together at the end.
And being an author, there are countless times where I'm coaching aspiring authors, and they'll ask me, what do you charge for this last hour that you've spent with me on Zoom or whatever? I'm like, nothing. Like, go be blessed. Like, I mean, God will give me back what I need. He'll take care of me. I'm good. Like, but it's important for me to see you thrive and succeed. So I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to help you. Not everything's about money, right?
Right.
So they're talking about wanting others to succeed. It's funny how when you want others to succeed, you start succeeding yourself, right? I mean, there's just it works. That's how things have worked out for me, most of the time. And so I'll spend touching on wanting others to win. There are just, yesterday I was on a call for an hour with a lady I've never met on a speakerphone, no idea what she looks like, but she emailed me through my website saying, I came across your name. I saw that you have a book published. I want to get published. I was like, cool, let's get a day and time down. Let's walk you through some things. And this is a lady who was retired. She had a successful career in broadcasting. And to hear from, she's probably decades older than me. And to hear from her on the phone, you may not realize this, Dennis, but you're mentoring me. And man, that I just received that. That was just such a blessing to hear that from a lady who has had a full career in media, right, as a producer at an NBC station and things like that. To hear that from her, man, that just made me feel good. So I absolutely agree with what you just said about we have to genuinely want to see others do well in life, because that could be our legacy, that Dennis was somebody who wanted to see other people succeed. So
yeah. That and I wonder what, Bonnie, when you said that, was that the same thing that I was in with you the other night with Dr. Sarah? Yeah. I thought so. That was a really great conversation. I was so glad to join in, and I just froze. So there we go. Anyway, but and we have Facebook user, which I don't know who you are. I don't see it yet, but I will check it out. So thank you. But they're right. Like, lift each other up. And you said about going over, it's never a problem to go over, because the conversation, did you hear that ding? Yeah. Okay, because I just got a ding message, so I wondered if it came through. But it's never a problem to go over. We went way over when we had George Koros on a couple of weeks ago, because he had the soundboard, and then like we were having a conversation, and we'll join in. But this is an important topic. I mean, across the board, talking about sharing our stories and social emotional learning and the power of connecting and why. And they're all things I wish I knew years ago, but that I know now, and then more comfortable sharing, just like you are and Bonnie does and everybody is who's writing, even if it only gets to one person. Like, it might be just that one person that needs it, but it's also good for, it was Sue. All right, Sue, welcome. I was hoping that.
Hi, Sue.
So, yay, thanks for joining. But even it's just that one person, but it's good for us too, because it helps our own social emotional learning, because we're writing about our experiences, we're reflecting on it, we're seeing our own growth, we're managing our emotions and stress and all of those things that are essential for us that we need to do and model in the classroom for our students too. So it has been kind of like a serious talk, but a good talk. And we always save room for fun. But what we've been talking about ties in very nicely to our game, because for anybody who is thinking about, like, how do I get to know my students? I will tell you that I did a game of Would You Rather with them at the beginning of the year. And I used, I think either Kahoot or quizzes or one of them. And they were just crazy questions. And it was just fun. They're like, this doesn't really have anything to do with Spanish. I said, no, it doesn't. I just want to know. And then we went through it like, well, why did you pick that? And it was interesting to learn about them. So I have 5 questions for both you and Bonnie. I may or may not answer, but I will leave it to both of you for these would you rather. And for anybody who's joining in, feel free to put your answer in the comments as well. Or even if you're watching after, send us a message. So question number 1, and this one always, everybody's like, wow, I don't know. Would you rather have the ability to see 10 minutes into the future or 150 years into the future?
Bonnie, you want to take a stab at it?
I say 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Man, being someone who's prone to be very anxious all the time, I don't know if, did you say 100 years?
150.
150, yeah. So being someone who gets anxious very easily, I don't know if I want to do 10 minutes because that might be too little for me because I want to know what happened the 11th minute. The 150 years is where I would go because I'm a long-term planner thinker.
Mm-hmm.
I always wonder what becomes of us. Like I always wonder like what happens in the next century and a half. So I think the 150 is where I'm going.
All right. And Bonnie had that question, I think, was that last week?
No, with Laura. That.
Yeah. I asked that. I always like to ask that question. My students, when I asked them, it was like 100 years in the past or 100 years in the future. So, okay, question number 2. Would you rather cuddle a koala or pal around with a panda? I did not make this up. I just this one.
Oh no, where's Dr. Michael? I know what he's gonna say.
I think I'm gonna cuddle the koala.
Me too.
Oh no, I choose the panda. Who cannot choose a panda? They're so cute.
I know, but I picked koala last week. But last week it was a koala or an elephant, I think, right?
Yes. Yeah, that was different.
And Dr. Harvey's answer was hilarious from last week. So I'll ask you. Well, I'm trying not to ask one that I asked Bonnie. Okay. Would you rather spend a week in the forest or a night in a real haunted house?
Week in the forest for me. Absolutely. I don't do haunted things. That's not my flavor. Forest, yes. Sights, sounds, the rain, love animals. I would want to be in some kind of a protected space, but yeah. And I'd want some night vision goggles, I think, just to kind of see what's going on.
That's good. That's good.
All right. I have spent the night in a haunted house, in a haunted bed and breakfast.
Oh my gosh.
The rocking chair was rocking. I'm not even joking. Yeah, it was pretty freaky. I don't know if they had it rigged up to something or what, but I would do that again. I've been camping way too much with my kids. I'm done with the woods. Done.
Yeah, I would pick the woods too. Even though I said I wasn't going to answer, I would pick the woods as well. Okay, question number, I lost track. This is number 4, I think.
4, yeah.
Pretty sure. So would you rather be trapped in the middle of a food fight or a water balloon fight? That's a random one too. For
me, water balloon. Love water. I've actually done tons of water fights back in high school. It was a blast. Food fight, too many smells.
Too messy.
It's just too much.
Yeah.
I've got sensory issues. I think that would not sit well with me. I think water. Did you say water fight or water balloon fight?
Water balloon fight.
Yeah, totally the water balloon fight. Takes me back to my childhood days. Love it.
Nice. Bonnie?
Yeah. When water dries, you just have dry clothes. When food dries,
not good.
Not good. No.
Someone throw an egg at you? Woo!
Ooh, yeah. On a hot day?
No.
Okay, this 5th one, before we wrap up, this one is actually pretty funny. I think it's funny. So would you rather have to walk to work in high heels or drive to work in reverse?
Oh, Lord. Well, I mean, am I driving? It depends on where I'm working. If I'm in a city, busy city working, I don't want to go reverse. But man, I don't want people see me walking in heels. Come on now.
I know. That's what makes it so funny.
I wouldn't mind if they're like platform shoes. Yeah, sure. I wouldn't.
No, these are stilettos. I've decided they're stilettos. I made the decision.
I'll take the heels because I'll bite the bullet and take the heels because driving in reverse is dangerous. I mean,
so is walking in high heels.
But I'll look good in it though.
Yes, you will. Bonnie, what would you pick?
Yeah, I'll take the heels. The worst I can do is break my ankles. In reverse, I can break a whole lot worse.
You can, yeah. And I have one more. Sue dropped one in, so I'll drop Sue's question in for both of you. Would you rather travel the world on a tiny budget or see one place in luxury?
Yeah, travel the world on a tiny budget. Because I think in figuring out how you're gonna make it around the world, you're gonna intersect with stories, like more experiences, right? Yeah, definitely that.
All right.
I definitely choose that too. You see more people, and you see. I hate to say you see more interesting people, but you do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah. Well, maybe you go places on a tiny budget, but you get a job while you're there driving Uber.
Hey, listen, I used to drive for Uber when I lived in Boston.
Did you?
Over the summer, that's what I did. In fact, I met my illustrator for my second book, My Wild First Day of School. He was a customer of mine. He was an Uber customer of mine that I picked up from a book release. And he gets in the car with his. I think one thing God has blessed me with is always to be on the lookout for what's happening right around you. Like I'm always looking for stories. So Uber driver, trying to make connections, where are you from, all that. And so, illustrator and his girlfriend at the time got in my car. He was just getting out of a book release. I said, hey, I'm a children's author. Would you be interested in talking to possibly illustrate my next book? He was like, yeah, sure. Come to find out, he's done work for Facebook and NBC and Fox and all this other stuff. He's the one who illustrated My Wild First Day of School, which is the book chosen for Read Across Oklahoma for 2022.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's just crazy how that all happened. So Uber, definitely, I have Uber memories. Yes.
Yeah, and that just shows like you never know who you're going to meet and the impact or the connection or whatever. So look at that. So great story. And so thanks to everybody for joining in for the game. And we've had a great conversation today, and I look forward to definitely the weekend, of course, to recharge a little bit. I have school Monday and Tuesday, but we will be back on Monday with a special guest, and then we will be taking a break for about a week and a half over the Thanksgiving break to kind of recharge, and then we'll be back in December. But we will see you on Monday. Dennis, thank you for joining.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this. This was fun.
Yeah.
Hope I didn't share too much or say too much or whatever, but I loved it. I loved being here with you guys. Thanks, Sue.
Yeah, and thank you, Bonnie, as always, for being co-host.
Yeah, I just love it. I'm so glad to be here. Seriously.
Yeah.
Miss you, Mel.
I know. I miss Mel a ton. I hope to see her soon. But always thinking about her, messaging her. So sending her lots of love all the way to Alaska. And for everybody, there we go. You were perfect. So thank you, Sue. Thanks for joining in. Thanks to everybody else. And have a fantastic weekend. Get some rest, naps, some time with family and friends. And we'll see you back here on Monday.
See you.